Hi there, it's Baz at GotAUkulele with another instrument review. Getting a bit behind with the blog again, but I did tell a few people that this one was coming. I've been having a bit of a rant lately, not like me, about the flood of cheap instruments that are coming into the marketplace, and news articles like we've seen this week, which I really don't think help, that go out and tell people that a ukulele can be bought for £20. Yeah, a ukulele-shaped object can be bought for £20. Now, people wrongly think that I've got a complete downer on cheap instruments, and I think that you should only ever buy high-end, hundreds of pounds instruments. That's rubbish. I regularly recommend cheap instruments. The Octopus Soprano is a great soprano instrument. Macala Dolphin regularly gets my recommendation. What I don't like is quality control lacking, and that's really started to fall away, I've found, at the cheap end of the range, where manufacturers and dealers like Amazon are really only interested in making a bit of profit from you. So musical instrument kind of falls by the wayside. Ukulele shaped object is probably better, and it's a real shame. And you know, the reason I rant about it is there are alternatives. If you look at your reviews carefully, look at the reviews on this site, there are instruments which buck the trend. Quality control can be maintained with the right instrument, but I'm afraid that the likes of Mahalo and this brand, which is a Stagg, seem to have gone through the floor. Now, you can comment on this blog as much as you like, drop me an email, have a rant, tell me that you got one, as most people do when I have this rant, and they say, but I've got a Mahalo and it sounds wonderful. Great, I'm sure you have. I'm not saying that wonderful examples don't exist. I think wonderful's probably stretching the word a little bit, but you know what I mean. Playable, reasonable quality, good quality control. Of course they exist. What I don't like, though, is that buying one of these from the likes of Amazon is like playing Russian roulette, because I am increasingly finding that bad examples are the norm. That's a real shame with Stagg, because they used to, as I was reminded by a very well-regarded ukulele player, used to make some instruments that were half decent. This isn't half decent. This is a Soprano US10 model, made out of unspecified laminate wood, basswood, covered in this natural finish, which basically means a spray paint job that removes any semblance of wood grain. Not that I think there is much wood grain underneath this plywood. If you look, it's a thick top. It's basically a thick box. And it's pretty scruffy, really. The finish is alright, it's nice and smooth, there's no chips on it, but you know, you shouldn't really be picking an instrument up and judging it as being a good one because there are no chips on it. I look inside and I've got wood shavings, what look like mouse droppings, the label, which wonderfully says handmade ukulele. Yeah, right, Stagg, of course it is. It's not handmade ukulele by my definition. This is made in a Chinese factory for people who are being paid far too little. There we are. It's not great. It's kind of thrown together, which is maybe what you'd expect for 20 quid. But remember what I said, there are alternatives which are better. We have a dark wood screwed on slotted bridge. This is good for a beginner, nice and easy to change the strings, so full marks there, I suppose. Uncompensated plastic saddle. It's a bit high, could be easily taken down by a beginner actually. That's not unusual to have a saddle that needs to take the action down. I'm judging that by the height of the strings over the 12th fret. Okay, so far I guess. Fairly standard soprano scale neck, 12 frets down to the body, nickel silver, no rough fret edges. We've got fret markers facing out and for the player as well, which I'm impressed with. But the quality control on the finish, and I suppose this is just finished. Finish doesn't make tone. It could be a lot better. There's bare patches where the paint hasn't quite covered, and it's quite uneven as well. You can see the fret edges on some parts, you can't on others. It's just pretty scruffy, really, as you can see here in the corners. And then when you look more closely, that fingerboard is actually painted black. So it's not black rosewood or any other sort of wood. well, I suppose it's wood loosely, but it's painted black. I mean, it's just awful. For £20 you can get an octopus soprano that has a really nice rosewood fingerboard. Far better than this. This is just corner cutting, penny pinching. Up to the nut, which is too high. There's a gripe. It's one thing asking a beginner to spend £20 and perhaps get a bit of sandpaper on the base of the saddle to make it play accurately, but the nut is too high. That's a bigger job. That requires nut files. That requires some care and attention so you don't go too far. It's one of those molded kind of nuts, so it's not even been cut by hand. It's just come out of a machine and been glued on. Yeah, that's disappointing. Fairly standard headstock shape with the Stagg logo screen printed on, and the tuners are open geared tuners, much as you will see on a Macala Dolphin. They're alright, they work, they're not too grindy, the buttons are too big, it makes it look like Mickey Mouse. They're alright, they're what you'd expect and probably what you'd get on an octopus as well at this price point. But it just, the whole thing just kind of smacks of, we'll make this as cheap as possible because we want more profit out of it. It's really roughly thrown together. Pretty horrible. Yeah, I am being down on it, and you may have a Stagg that you like. I don't like this one, and I just bought this one randomly myself from Amazon. This is how it arrived. I've done nothing to it. Comes with unbranded nylon clear strings, which are pretty awful. Again, people say to me, yeah, but you know, you buy a cheap ukulele, of course you're going to buy Aquila strings and put them on, it's going to make it sound better. Yes, it will. But then your £20 uke becomes best part of a £30 uke to do that. So, you know, it's not quite the bargain. The bargain starts to disappear. If you pay a tech to work on the nut for you, you may pay 25 quid to get that done. More work. You may pay £10 to get some cheap nut files to do it yourself. More cost. Shouldn't happen. Maybe they tried to swing the deal with this wonderful gig bag, which is about the worst quality gig bag I think I've ever seen. It's made out of that material that really cheap anoraks used to be made out of in the 1970s. Zero protection. I don't really know what the point of it is. Why would you need to put it in here? It's not going to do anything. You'd probably scratch it putting it on with a zip. There we are. Not a fan. I just think this is getting worse and worse in the ukulele world, and the media are now on top of it and saying this is how much a ukulele will cost people. Look at my review section. There's plenty of ukes on there. Spend a bit more, and if you can only spend £20, I fully understand that money is tight for a lot of people. There are better options out there than just buying blind from Amazon. Please avoid them. How's it sound though? It sounds like elastic bands on a tissue box. I better tune it because the strings are taking an age to settle, which I would expect with nylons. The C string sounds dead. I don't know if you can tell that. So I don't know whether that is just a bad string. I suspect it is because I can't see anything in the nut slot. So the strings are going to have to get changed anyway if you bought this, because there is zero sustain on that C. There we go. Tune the right string, Paul. E. It just, to my ears, you know, the Macala Dolphin and the Octopus sound so much better than this. And obviously, if you can spend more money, get up to a Lanakai LU21, maybe up to £100, buy a Bruco or a Hana SK25, far better choice, really. Not a lot of sustain and a kind of one-dimensional sound. No separation across the strings, and some tuning issues with certain chords down here. You see, that's a G7. It's automatically sounding a little bit sharp. That C string certainly. That's because the nut's too high. So you're always going to have that unless you fix the nut. So if you can put up with that kind of sound, and that means you can put up with learning on an instrument that isn't in tune ever, Go for your life, but why would you? Just another point. I don't know whether this, I've not taken a tape measure to this, but I think that bridge is set very slightly on the wrong angle. So that's just an error in manufacture. I could try and, let's see, at the 12th, well, it's hard to even get a note out of the 12th. That's off. That's off. And that's off. So there is a problem with the intonation down the length. That may get sorted by changing the action slightly. I think the bridge is slightly in the wrong place. Percussive wise, yeah, you could learn on it, I guess. I've seen worse. I have seen worse entry-level ukuleles. The Ready Ace, if you look at my reviews, is about the worst thing I've ever seen, and not even a musical instrument. But it's hard to get excited about this. It's really not very nice when there are better alternatives. Dear me, why does this just keep happening? Have some respect for your customers, please. Don't buy from Amazon, because you're not going to get anybody check them over. A good uke shop may well have just done a little bit of a tinker on that nut for you before shipping it out. A good uke shop, I would argue, probably wouldn't sell something like this. The Stagg US10. If you're tight with money and it's a problem, I know what it's like with kids and the way the economy is at the moment, and you must spend £20, do your homework, buy from a good ukulele store, read some reviews, find some instruments that do fit into that better quality control bracket. This does not fit into that bracket, yet it's the #1 bestseller on Amazon. I think that tells you everything that you need to know about what worries me about the way the ukulele market is going for beginners. Not great, and does not have my recommendation.